The first physical bullet cracked, shattering 3,000 years of peace. Thick smoke from burning carbon wiped out the clean ozone smell of the assembly hall. The main blast door bent inward. Sergeant Elias Vance did not shout. He planted his heavy boots in the fresh ash falling from the crystal ceiling. He raised a long block of wood and iron. The doors broke. The soldiers rushed. The rifle fired. You will want to hear how 15 humans held the line when the dark finally came for the galaxy. 4 minutes earlier, Station Ethelgard was completely quiet. Archivist Prime Thessaly Vorn watched from the highest ring of seats. Her 4 thin antennae pressed flat against her pale skull. She knew the law. She also knew what happened when people forgot why the law was written in the first place. The assembly hall was huge. Builders had carved it from pale white moon rock. 60,000 seats formed perfect circles around a central floor. A massive crystal dome served as the roof. It showed the cold, deep black of space outside. The air always smelled sharply of electrical ozone and polished brass. It was the smell of a machine that had never been tested. It was the smell of a peace that had never been threatened by anything real. High Adjudicator Zareth Kale stood at the center podium. His gray shell gleamed with silver metal tracery. He had ruled the council for 14 cycles. He had spent his whole life trying to remove all sharp edges from the galaxy. He believed that forcing everyone to act exactly the same was the only way to keep civilization alive. He had never walked on a world that was hard to live on. He looked down at the human desks with absolute disgust. The rule on weapons is now total, Kale said. His voice bounced across the massive empty spaces. The translation tools sent his words into 400 different languages at the exact same time. You will hand over your guns now. If you do not, we will mark your kind as a threat. High above them, the defense system woke up. 45 automated turrets hung from the crystal ceiling. They had sat quiet for 3 whole ages. Now, they spun around with a low hum. Red targeting beams dropped down like a cage. They rested directly on the chests of the 15 human guards standing near the floor. Thessaly felt a cold dread in her chest. She looked at the human delegation. She expected them to beg. She expected them to run. They did neither. At the Terran desk, Ambassador Calder Voss did not move. He was 48 years old. Faded burn scars covered his left hand. He did not yell. He did not look up at the red lights on his chest. He reached into his vest. He pulled out a tarnished brass watch. The glass face was cracked straight down the middle. Voss checked the time against nothing at all. He set the watch on his metal desk. The hard click sounded like a tiny gunshot in the vast room. He reached for a dented tin flask. He poured dark, hot tea into a small cup. He took a slow sip. He breathed in the steam. Thessaly leaned over the brass rail toward Kale. "Do not push this," she whispered. Her voice sounded like dry leaves rubbing together. "The rule has a hole in it for a reason." Kale clicked his jaw. The sound meant he was angry. "They are wild animals," he said. "They act like they own the sanctuary. The time for old fears is over." Down on the floor, Voss pressed the talk button on his desk. He did not raise his voice. "We will keep our gear," he said. Kale raised a hand. He was going straight for the kill command. He was about to order the ceiling guns to fire on the human guards. Then the light in the room changed. The stars outside the crystal dome vanished. A massive shape blocked the sun. The shadow fell right over Kale's podium. 18 heavy warships dropped out of deep space. They parked right next to the station. They flew the ragged flags of Vrethkai paid killers. The station alarms finally woke up. They started to scream a high, terrible pitch. The official police fleet was 3 days away on the outer edge of the system. No one was coming to help. A massive wave of static energy washed through the room. The main lights died. Emergency red bulbs flickered on. The 45 ceiling guns went limp. Their red beams faded to nothing. The 3 heavy steel doors at the edges of the room slammed shut and locked down tight. Kale froze. His silver tracery caught the red light. He looked at the locked doors. Then he saw the bright orange sparks. Torches were cutting through the thick steel from the outside. Thessaly grabbed the brass rail. Her hands shook. They wanted hostages. 300 heavy killers were about to break into a room full of politicians who had never thrown a single punch in their lives. A young alien near her started to cry. The sound broke the spell. The whole crowd began to push and shove in the dark. Robes tore. People fell. They trampled each other trying to climb the walls. They were soft. They did not know what to do when the safety turned off. Down on the floor, the human desk lit up with a blue glow. Voss pushed a data pad forward. A young human clerk with ink on her fingers typed a fast code. A huge wall of text projected into the middle of the dark room. It hung in the air above the screaming crowd. It was old, 300 years old. The Obsidian Charter, Voss read out loud. His voice cut right through the sound of the burning doors. Section 4. Deathworld forces may keep physical weapons as the last defense for the Council. Thessaly remembered the old secret. She was one of the few who had read the real history. The first leaders of the station had secretly begged Earth to stay armed. They knew a day would come when the Bright system failed. They paid the humans to be the monster in the basement. They paid them to remember how to kill. Sergeant Vance chambered around. The thick metal click cut through the crying. His 14 guards moved out. They did not run. They walked with steady, heavy steps. They formed 3 groups to block the 3 melting doors. They held old, heavy rifles. The guns had no computer chips inside them. They had no smart links. The static wave had not touched them at all. Kale watched them from his podium. He saw 15 humans calmly standing in front of certain death. They looked like farmers waiting for a storm they had seen 100 times before. The first blast door gave way. It fell inward with a heavy crash. 300 Vrethkai boarders poured through the hole. They wore heavy dark armor. Their smart guns scanned the room for targets, looking for heat blooms and energy cells. The crystal dome above them cracked under the stress. Dust fell like snow. Vance did not shout. He exhaled a long breath. His scuffed boots stayed planted in the ash. The heavy kinetic rifle rose to his shoulder. He did not use a targeting laser. He just looked down the iron sights. The first round took a boarder through the face mask at 40 yards. The sound was a raw, physical crack. It echoed off the pale stone walls. Every single alien in the room flinched. They had never heard a real gun before. It sounded like a rock hitting bone. The 14 other guards formed 3 tight lines at the doorways. They fired. They pulled bolts back. They fired again. Hot brass shells hit the floor. The sound was deafening. It beat against the chest. The Vrethkai armor was built to stop heat rays. It was built to stop plasma burns. It was built for the clean wars of the modern age. It was not built to stop solid lead flying faster than sound. The heavy bullets tore right through the metal plates. The boarders fell backward into the halls. They screamed. They tried to fall back. No pulse to jam, no signal to hack, no mercy to give. Voss stood in the middle of the room. He kept reading the old law out loud over the heavy gunfire. His voice stayed flat and calm. The legal words became a dark song for the blood spilling on the floor. The price of peace is the memory of war, Voss read. The gunfire answered him. The guards did not move. When one ran out of bullets, another stepped up to take his place. They worked like a single machine. They did not let a single killer step foot inside the main ring. 4 minutes passed. The room filled with thick gray smoke. It smelled like copper and burned powder. The boarders broke. They stopped pushing through the doors. The humans had not moved back a single inch. They just kept loading and firing. The last attacker fell hard at the 3rd doorway. Kale realized his perfect law was dead forever. He would have to write a new one just to explain why he was still breathing and figure out how to hide the truth from the rest of the galaxy. The 45 ceiling gun stayed dark. The cutting torches were cold. The only sound in the huge room was the wet breathing of the survivors. Cale stood up slowly from behind his desk. His hands shook hard. Gray ash covered his shiny silver shell. He stared at the dark blood pooling on the white floor. He looked at Sergeant Vance. The human soldier was quietly pushing new bullets into his gun. His boots looked like they had grown roots in the floor. He did not look proud. He just looked tired. Thessaly stepped next to the high adjudicator. Her 4 antennae were still flat against her head. She looked at the dead killers stacked at the doors. "Do not question the charter," she said. "Let them keep their iron." The council did not take their guns that day. They changed the rules. Voss walked over to his desk in the quiet room. He picked up the brass watch. He wiped the gray ash from its cracked glass face. He wound the small dial on the side. He put it back in his pocket. No alarms ringing, no orders shouted, no steps taken. The steady ticking started again. The fire at the door was still burning.